Hello, it's Tim with the next step in our future proofing process. And you'll recall that what we're going through is we're working through the 7 steps to taking control, doing what you love, and being valued in an unpredictable, unforgiving world. So this is what I refer to as future-proofing yourself. So to bring you up to speed, we have gone through now, there's videos for going through 5 of the total of 7 steps. And so briefly, what we've covered to date is step number 1, which is really about taking ownership, taking explicit ownership of your career development and what you want to do with your available time, energy, resources. That leads to step number 2, which is something that we've called the weekly heartbeat, and it's a set of productivity activities, or a set of regular routines that you can build yourself into, which will help you to become much more productive and focused on the important work and not necessarily all the urgent and distracting work that often fills our days. So that's step number 2, is the mechanics of kind of getting productive. And that leads us to the next step. Step number 3 was about now taking the time to go deeper and be very reflective and look into yourself about what it is that you find most compelling and how you really add value. And we talked about this as developing your most compelling value story, your highest value story. So that's all that we know about value propositions, superpowers. We've got lots of different names for it. But in essence, this is the work, this is the purposeful work that you really want to lean into. This is the stuff you want to become known for. And step number 3 is about packaging and figuring all that out. And that leads to step number 4, which is now that you are starting to become clear and confident in what you deliver and in the wheelhouse that you really want to own and operate in and be known for. Step number 4 is about building out that network, building out your network through active networking, through active engagement of humanity, and essentially letting people know that you exist and what you can do. And there's a number of strategies and tactics for how to do that. But in essence, it's about taking your message out to the world. And I often think about signal to noise ratio. As an electrical engineer, we talked a lot about signal to noise ratio. The world's a very noisy place. As you know, the internet is profoundly noisy. Step number 3 is about really clarifying and boosting your signal. And then that gives you in step number 4, the networking, about essentially about showing up because you've got a much higher signal ratio rather than the background noise. So that's what we call signal to noise ratio. And then that leads us to step number 5, which is about, through that networking and the fact that you now are clear about where it is that you wish to really develop yourself in terms of your wheelhouse, your expertise, your the things you really want to lean into, your purpose, is becoming hyper curious about what's going on in that space and in the related space. And the beautiful thing about this is that because this is the area that you have chosen to really excel at, and because this aligns with your natural gifts and your the way you work and the way you think and your experiences and all of these things to date, this is naturally what you want to do. This is the area that you are actually very curious about. These are the conferences you're attending. These are the books you're reading. And so this step is all really about being open now and being quite curious, because this is where you will start to meld with where the new tools and the technologies and the new practices are happening. And the more that you embrace those and experiment with those and become proficient in those, the better and better your own value proposition becomes. So that's step number 5. And that leads us now to what we want to talk about today, which is your opportunity pipeline. So step number 6 is about building and managing a robust opportunity pipeline. Now, this is no secret for anybody who's done any sort of sales in their life. The whole essence, the main tool for a salesperson is essentially a pipeline, your opportunity pipeline, your prospect list. And it's the discipline of following up. And when you first meet somebody and you you are able to start to explore an opportunity. It's, how often do I need to follow up with that person? How do I continue to progress that conversation to the point where I can, we talk about qualifying in or out opportunities. Qualifying in an opportunity is getting the green signals, the green lights that say, yep, actually there is a, if we're thinking about in a corporate environment, yes, there is a budget, yes, there is a decision maker, yes, this looks to be a priority project, yes, it looks like our solution is a good fit. So, that's about qualifying in a prospect. Equally important, if not more important, is actually qualifying out opportunities, rather than wasting a profound amount of time going back and revisiting and trying to get conversations going back up and running. And certainly if you've been in this space, you know that oftentimes these opportunities in the business realm can be months and months and months and months. And then at some point something happens, and sometimes it happens in a magical way and good things happen, but oftentimes it's, the conversation goes dead, the budget dries up, the opportunity was filled by somebody else that you didn't know about. So the discipline that we really want to build as part of our own future-proofing process is a lightweight but high quality opportunity pipeline that is easy to manage, but keeps us focused and keeps us kind of churning it on a regular basis, so that it's not just loading up with a whole bunch of one-off and two-off contacts that we've had where we hope something will happen, but we've never had the discipline to go back and really push it to turn it into an opportunity or to shut it down. And that's really the biggest failing for most of us in terms of the opportunities is we, it's often not, it seems counterproductive to go back and push on a particular project or a particular prospect and try to validate whether or not this thing really exists, because I don't want maybe the proposal I sent in bugged them, or and what's interesting is we tend to interpret the lack of data that we get, the lack of feedback, we tend to interpret it in a negative way, and we assume that somebody is sitting there and if we go and prod them again, we may well piss them off, and they'll say, no way, wait, we don't want to do work, or I don't want to write that book with you, or no, I'm not going to invite you onto my podcast, or whatever the opportunity might be. And of course, that's actually not the case. What we really want to do, and maybe it is the case in a very, very small number of examples, but really what we do want to do is, everybody's busy, everybody's distracted. So we need to, in a professional, courteous manner, kind of put the opportunity back on their front burner, or say, hey, is this really an opportunity that you want to develop? We talked about writing a book together. Is this a good time? Are you ready to do this? What would that look like? And if the person says, no, hey, you know what, something's happening in my life, it's not quite the right time to do it, then great. Then, pull back, stop wasting effort on trying to push on a closed door. But again, depending on what that opportunity is, what you then have is you sort of have a follow-up file that you can develop that is, in 3 months, I'll ping you back and we'll see if it's a better time to do these things. So once you start to put those disciplines in place, and that's, it's relatively straightforward. It is simply the matter of spending a little bit of time every week to actually take these things seriously and to follow up on these things. And so churning that pipeline is an important discipline, because you want to make sure that you're continually adding in new opportunities from all that networking and curiosity that you've developed in the earlier steps. You want to be adding in those opportunities, and then you want to be pinging them, and you'll have your own process about, how often do you ping someone before you sort of say, okay, I'm not getting any response, I'll put that on the side burner. And also, when we think about opportunities, these aren't just jobs or projects. They could also be, as I've mentioned, collaboration opportunities. They might be new training opportunities. They might be, they could be volunteer positions. They might be, board of advisors or board of director roles. So they're not all necessarily paid gigs. The real critical thing about an opportunity is you have to decide, what is this going to do for me? How is this advancing my own development? And then, now what am I going to do about it? So that's all the sort of magic, if you will, of developing a robust opportunity pipeline and managing it. So I'm going to leave it at that, and then we will come back to the final step in the next video, and then the future proofing model will be complete. So for now, that's Tim Reagan, over and out. Take care.